I'm Juliana, 32. 10 years ago, my doorbell rang at 3 in the morning. There stood my drug-addicted sister Melody, a newborn in a carrier at her feet. She thrust a note in my hand, begged me to take the baby, and vanished into the night. When I called my parents for help, they coldly said, "She's your burden now." I raised that little girl as my own. Now they're suing for custody, claiming I kept them from their granddaughter all these years. But I have evidence that will shock everyone in that courtroom. If you're watching this, drop a comment about where you're viewing from and subscribe to hear stories about family betrayal and unexpected motherhood that might just hit close to home. My life before Lily was meticulously organized. At 22, I was a graduate psychology student at Northwestern University, living in a small but cozy Chicago apartment I could barely afford on my teaching assistant stipend. Every moment of my day was scheduled between classes, research, and my part-time job at the university library. I had clear goals: finish my degree, complete my internship hours, and become a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma therapy. My boyfriend Marcus and I had been together since undergrad. He was in law school, equally ambitious and busy. We understood each other's drive and made time for each other when we could, planning our future together in broad strokes without rushing anything. We talked about marriage after our careers were established, children years down the road when we were ready. Everything in its proper time. This orderly existence contrasted sharply with my family dynamics. My parents lived in Winnetka, a wealthy Chicago suburb where appearances meant everything. My father Richard worked as an investment banker. My mother Diana maintained their social standing through charity galas and country club memberships. They had specific expectations for their daughters: prestigious colleges, respectable careers, advantageous marriages. I mostly complied, though I chose psychology over business or law, much to their disappointment. My younger sister Melody rebelled against everything our parents represented. Bright but defiant, she dropped out of college after one semester, cycled through minimum wage jobs, and disappeared for weeks at a time. What started as teenage experimentation with alcohol and marijuana escalated to harder substances by her 20th birthday. My parents' approach oscillated between enabling her with money and cutting her off completely, neither strategy proving effective. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" they would tell Melody during family arguments, pointing to my academic success while ignoring my suggestions that Melody needed professional help. The comparison only drove her further away and strained my relationship with her. I tried reaching out, offering to help her find treatment programs, but she rejected my attempts as condescension. "You think you're so perfect," she once spat during a particularly heated argument. "You have no idea what it's like living in your shadow." The last time I had spoken to Melody was 6 months before that fateful night. She called at an odd hour, sounding more coherent than usual, to tell me about a new boyfriend. Something in her voice worried me when she mentioned he was connected and had businesses all over the city. I pressed for details, but she became evasive. When I suggested meeting for coffee, she promised to call back but never did. I had largely separated myself from family drama by this point. My apartment building stood in a transitional neighborhood, affordable but requiring street smarts to navigate safely. My neighbor Tara, another psychology graduate student, became my closest friend. We supported each other through exams, celebrated small victories, and vented about academic pressures over cheap wine and takeout. "Family is who you choose," Tara often said when I worried about Melody or complained about my parents' criticism. My financial situation was always precarious. My parents contributed a small amount toward my tuition contingent on maintaining perfect grades, but I worked to cover living expenses. I budgeted carefully clipped coupons and learned to stretch every dollar. My future seemed challenging but clear until the night that changed everything. That Wednesday had been unremarkable. I stayed late at the library researching for my thesis, came home exhausted, heated leftover pasta, and fell asleep on my secondhand couch while reviewing journal articles. The sound of my doorbell jolted me awake at exactly 3:17 in the morning. My heart raced as I checked my phone, seeing no missed calls or texts explaining who might be at my door at this hour. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous exactly, but not the kind of place where unexpected late-night visitors meant good news. I approached cautiously, turning on the porch light and peering through the peephole. A hooded figure shifted nervously on my welcome mat. Something about the posture seemed familiar, and when the person glanced up, I recognized Melody's face, gaunt and pale in the harsh light. I quickly unlocked the door, relief and worry battling for dominance. "Mel, what are you doing here? Are you okay?" She looked worse up close. Her normally vibrant brown hair hung limp and unwashed beneath her hood. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she had lost significant weight since I'd last seen her. But what truly shocked me was what sat at her feet, an infant carrier with a tiny baby bundled inside. "I need your help, Jules," Melody's voice cracked. "I really messed up this time." "Whose baby is this? What's going on?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "She's mine. Her name is Lily." Melody glanced nervously over her shoulder toward the street. "I can't take care of her. Kevin, her father, he's looking for us. He's dangerous. I need to disappear for a while." "Melody, you can't just leave your baby. We need to call Mom and Dad or the police if you're in danger." "No police." The sharpness in her voice startled me. She softened, desperation evident in her eyes. "And definitely not our parents. Please, Juliana. Just for a little while. You're the only one I trust." Before I could respond, she thrust a folded piece of paper into my hand and knelt to touch the sleeping infant's cheek. "I'm sorry, baby girl," she whispered, then stood abruptly. "Everything you need to know is in the note. I'll contact you when it's safe." "Melody, wait." I grabbed her arm as she turned to leave. "You can't just drop off your baby like a package. Where are you going? When will you be back?" "I don't know. Soon, I hope." She pulled away, already moving toward the stairs. "Take care of her, Jules. She's innocent in all this." I called after her, but she rushed down the stairs and disappeared into the darkness. Stunned, I stood in my doorway until a cold breeze reminded me of the infant at my feet. I carefully brought the carrier inside and closed the door, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Under the living room light, I got my first clear look at my niece. She was tiny, perhaps 5 or 6 pounds, with a wisp of dark hair and Melody's heart-shaped face. Her sleeper was too large and stained, and I could smell that she needed a diaper change. With shaking hands, I unfolded the note Melody had given me. "Her name is Lily, born 3 weeks ago. I can't do this. Formula and diapers in the bag, birth certificate inside. Please don't tell anyone where we are. I'll be back when I can. Thank you." That was it. No further explanation, no contact information, no indication of when I can, might be. The bag she mentioned contained a half-empty can of Formula 4 diapers, a dirty baby blanket, and an envelope with an uncertified birth certificate listing Lily Grace Johnson, with Melody as the mother and the father field blank. Panic rose in my chest as the baby began to stir and whimper. I had no experience with infants, no supplies, no idea what to do next. My hands shook as I dialed Melody's number, repeatedly, each call going straight to voicemail. I tried my parents despite Melody's warning, but at that hour, they didn't answer either. "Oh God, oh God," I whispered, as Lily's whimpers escalated to cries. I carefully lifted her from the carrier, supporting her head like I'd seen people do on TV. "Shh, it's okay. It's going to be okay." But it wasn't okay. The baby needed a diaper change, proper clothes, a safe place to sleep. I had none of these things. In desperation, I called Tara. "I need help," I said when she answered, my voice breaking. "My sister just abandoned her newborn baby with me." Within 30 minutes, Tara arrived with emergency supplies from an all-night drugstore, diapers, wipes, formula bottles, and a few newborn outfits. "You're a lifesaver," I told her, as she showed me how to change a diaper, her experience from babysitting younger siblings proving invaluable. "What are you going to do?" Tara asked as we improvised a bed from a dresser drawer lined with clean towels. "I have no idea. Try to find Melody, talk to my parents in the morning, figure this out somehow." Throughout that long night, I called Melody's number every hour, left messages on every platform we'd ever communicated through, and emailed both her personal and work addresses. No response. Lily woke every 2 hours, hungry and uncomfortable in her strange new surroundings. As dawn broke, I sat in my armchair holding the finally sleeping infant, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. The initial shock had given way to a strange determination. I didn't know how long Melody would be gone, but for now this child needed protection. And apparently, I was all she had. The next morning, after a few hours of fitful sleep, I carefully placed Lily in her makeshift carrier and drove to my parents' house in Winnetka. The contrast between my life and theirs had never felt more stark as I pulled my used Honda into the circular driveway of their Tudor-style mansion. Their 5-bedroom house with its manicured lawn and 3-car garage represented everything I had moved away from. I hadn't visited in months, finding the pristine environment and constant judgment too stifling. Now I was returning with the kind of family crisis they despised most, one that couldn't be hidden from the neighbors. I rang the doorbell, adjusting Lily in my arms and rehearsing how to explain the situation calmly. My mother opened the door, immaculately dressed in pressed slacks and a cashmere sweater despite the early hour. Her practiced smile froze when she saw the bundle in my arms. "Juliana, what is this?" She stepped back as though afraid the baby might be contagious. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. It's an emergency." I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Melody showed up at my apartment last night and left her baby with me. "Her what?" My mother's voice rose sharply. "That's impossible. Melody isn't—" She would have told us if she was pregnant. Well, she didn't, and she did, and now I have her 3-week-old daughter. The exhaustion and stress made my voice sharper than intended. "Is Dad home? We need to figure out what to do." My father appeared from his home office, frowning at the commotion. "What's going on here?" "Richard, Juliana says this baby belongs to Melody, that she abandoned it with her last night." "Her, not it," I corrected. "Her name is Lily." My father's face darkened as I explained what had happened, showing them the note and the birth certificate. Instead of the concern or compassion I had hoped for, his expression shifted to cold anger. "This is exactly the sort of irresponsible behavior we've come to expect from your sister," he said, pacing the marble foyer. "And now she's dragged you into her mess." "I'm not concerned about me right now," I replied, bouncing gently as Lily began to fuss. "I'm worried about Melody. She seemed scared. She said the baby's father is dangerous. We need to find her." "And exactly how do you propose we do that?" my father demanded. "She's been ignoring our calls for months. She takes our money when it suits her and disappears when it doesn't." "We could file a missing persons report," I suggested, "or hire a private investigator. And have everyone in our circle know that our daughter had a baby out of wedlock with some criminal," my mother interjected. "Absolutely not." "Are you serious right now? Your daughter might be in danger, and your first concern is what the country club will think." My father's expression hardened further. "Don't take that tone with us. This is precisely why we've always had to be strict with Melody. No boundaries, no responsibility." "What about Lily? She's your granddaughter." My mother glanced at the baby with thinly veiled distaste. "There are services for these situations. Adoption agencies that find good homes for unexpected children." I stared at her in disbelief. "You want to put your own granddaughter up for adoption?" "It would be the sensible solution," my father agreed. "Melody clearly isn't ready to be a mother, and you're in no position to raise a child, Juliana. You can barely support yourself. I'm not asking to raise her permanently. I just need your help while we find Melody." "And what if she doesn't want to be found?" my father countered. "What if this is just another of her disappearing acts, and now she's saddled you with the consequences of her poor decisions?" I felt tears of frustration burning behind my eyes, but refused to let them fall. "She's family. The baby is innocent in all this." "She's your burden now," my father said with finality. "We won't be dragged into this mess. Your sister made her choice, and now you've made yours by bringing that child here instead of to the proper authorities." If you insist on enabling your sister's irresponsibility, that's your choice, my mother added. But don't expect us to participate. What about the financial help you're providing for my education? I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it. My father's expression was triumphant, as though he'd been waiting for this question. If you choose this path, you're on your own. We won't fund both your education and your sister's mistakes. I looked from one cold face to the other, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity the conditional nature of their love. All my life I had tried to meet their expectations to be the good daughter, while they alternately indulged and punished Melody. Now, when a truly vulnerable family member needed help, they were choosing appearances over compassion. I understand, I said quietly, gathering Lily's few belongings. I won't bother you again. The drive back to Chicago was a blur of tears and fearful questions. How would I finish my degree? How could I care for an infant alone? What would happen to my carefully planned future? But beneath the fear was a growing resolve. Lily deserved better than abandonment, better than being treated as an embarrassment or mistake. I stopped at a police station to report Melody missing and explain the situation. Officer Jackson, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, took my report seriously and connected me with a social worker who could advise me on temporary guardianship. You're doing the right thing, Officer Jackson told me, gently touching Lily's cheek. Not everyone would step up like this. By the time I returned to my apartment, Tara had organized donations from neighbors, a portable crib, baby clothes, bottles, and formula. The practical kindness of near strangers contrasted sharply with my parents' rejection, reinforcing my decision. That night, as I fed Lily in the quiet darkness of my apartment, I whispered a promise. I don't know how long your mom will be gone, but until she comes back, you're safe with me. We'll figure this out together. I had no idea then that, until she comes back, would stretch into weeks, then months, then years, or that the temporary guardianship papers would eventually give way to adoption documents. I only knew that in the space of 24 hours, everything had changed and there was no going back. 3 months into unexpected motherhood, my apartment had transformed. The living room now contained a second-hand crib, a changing table repurposed from an old desk, and baskets of baby supplies. My psychology textbooks shared shelf space with parenting books, and the refrigerator door held a schedule of feedings and naps instead of my academic calendar. The transition hadn't been easy. Every aspect of my life required adjustment, starting with my education. I met with my academic advisor, Dr. Freeman, to request a reduced course load and extension on my thesis timeline. I understand your situation is unique, she said carefully, but the program has specific completion requirements. I'm not dropping out, I insisted, just slowing down. I can still complete the work, just not at the pace I planned. After much negotiation, the department agreed to a modified schedule that would extend my graduation by a year, with the understanding that all academic standards must still be met. It wasn't ideal, but it gave me a path forward. Marcus initially seemed supportive, helping assemble the crib and occasionally bringing over takeout dinners. But as weeks passed, his visits became less frequent, his texts more perfunctory. I care about you, he finally admitted during a tense conversation while Lily napped. But this isn't what I signed up for. We had a plan, Juliana. Careers first, then marriage, then kids years from now. Not raising your sister's baby while we're still students. Plans change, I replied, hurt but not surprised. Life happens. Not like this, not for me. He looked at me with genuine regret. I'm just not ready to be an instant father. I'm sorry. After he left, I allowed myself 30 minutes to cry before pulling myself together for Lily's next feeding. Heartbreak was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Childcare presented the next major hurdle. I couldn't afford professional daycare on my reduced income, especially after my parents cut off financial support as promised. I cobbled together a patchwork system. Tara watched Lily during my essential in-person classes. I brought her with me to the library when possible. I swapped babysitting with other student parents I met through a university parenting group. Legal issues proved equally challenging. With Officer Jackson's help, I connected with a law school clinic that provided free assistance with family law matters. A third-year law student named Raoul helped me file for temporary guardianship. Without termination of parental rights from your sister, adoption isn't possible yet, he explained. But guardianship will give you legal authority to make decisions for Lily and access to certain benefits. The social services visits were nerve-wracking. I cleaned my apartment obsessively before each one worried they would decide my student housing wasn't suitable for a child. The caseworker, Mrs. Patel, was thorough but kind. Many children have been raised in much less loving environments, she assured me after her third visit. You're doing remarkably well under difficult circumstances. Financial strain became my constant companion. I applied for every assistance program available: WIC for formula, and baby food, a childcare subsidy, through the university's Family Resource Center food stamps, to supplement our groceries. I took on additional online tutoring work that I could do from home, while Lily slept, often staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning to complete my own assignments after a full day of caregiving. Throughout those months, I continued searching for Melody. I contacted her old friends, posted on social media, checked with hospitals and shelters. The few leads I found led nowhere. Occasionally, I would receive cryptic text messages from unknown numbers: "Tell Lily I love her," or "I'll be back soon," or "Keep her safe." I could never reply before the numbers were disconnected. My parents maintained their silence. I sent photos of Lily and updates on her development to their email addresses, but received no response. I mailed an invitation to her baptism performed by Tara's brother, who was a divinity student. The invitation came back marked, "Return to sender." Despite the challenges, Lily thrived. She grew from a slightly undernourished newborn to a chubby, cheerful baby who reached her milestones on schedule. Her first smile at 6 weeks came during a particularly exhausting night when I was trying to soothe her through colic. That spontaneous, toothless grin gave me the strength to keep going when everything seemed impossible. By the time Lily was 6 months old, we had established routines that allowed both of us to survive. I had learned to type one-handed while feeding her, to function on 4 hours of broken sleep, to pack a diaper bag that anticipated every emergency. With help from my growing support network, I found a slightly larger one-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood where Lily could have the bedroom while I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. The original timeline for my life had been completely upended, but a new path was taking shape. I narrowed my research focus to resilience in children who had experienced early adversity, finding academic purpose in our personal situation. My professors noted that my work had gained depth and practical insight, even as my ability to participate in optional academic activities diminished. When Lily was 11 months old, I completed my master's degree. Tara decorated Lily's stroller with streamers and a tiny sign reading, "My aunt finished her thesis," for the graduation ceremony. As I crossed the stage in my rented gown, balancing academic achievement with unexpected motherhood, I realized I had become someone entirely different from the carefully organized student of a year ago, someone stronger and more adaptable than I had ever imagined possible. The years following my graduation unfurled in a series of challenges and triumphs as Lily and I built our life together. With my master's degree completed, I found work as a counselor at a community mental health center while completing my supervised hours toward full licensure. The position paid modestly, but offered crucial health insurance and a flexible schedule that accommodated single parenthood. Lily grew from baby to toddler to preschooler, her personality emerging more distinctly with each passing year. She had Melody's artistic temperament, but my determination, spending hours with crayons and finger paints, but approaching each creation with serious focus. By age 4, she could write her name in wobbly letters and count to 20 without mistakes. Achievements I documented carefully in the baby book I kept updated despite our busy lives. Our apartment, though still small, became a real home. The walls displayed Lily's artwork alongside my framed degree. We established traditions: Saturday morning pancakes, bedtime stories with different voices for each character, simple birthday celebrations with homemade cakes and carefully chosen budget-friendly gifts. We were not wealthy, but we were stable. Our basic needs met through careful planning and occasional help from the support network I had cultivated. As Lily grew, more verbal questions about her origins became inevitable. The first came when she was around 3, sparked by a preschool activity about families. "Where's my mommy?" she asked one evening during bath time, her directness catching me off guard. I had anticipated this moment and consulted with a child psychologist about age-appropriate honesty. "Your mommy is my sister. Her name is Melody. She couldn't take care of you when you were a baby, so she brought you to me." "Why couldn't she take care of me?" "Sometimes grown-ups have problems that make it hard for them to take care of children. She wanted you to be safe and loved, so she asked me to be your special person." This explanation satisfied her temporarily, but the questions evolved as she grew older. By age 6, she wanted more specific answers. "Is my mommy coming back? Why don't I have a daddy? Do I have grandparents like my friends?" I maintained honesty while shielding her from the most painful truths. "I don't know if your mommy will come back. She has been sick for a long time. Your father isn't in our lives, but lots of families are different. Yes, you have grandparents, but they live far away and don't visit." This last answer was the hardest, especially when Lily came home from school events designed for grandparents, her face showing the quiet hurt of exclusion. To compensate, I enlisted Tara, now officially Lily's godmother, and several older members of our community to serve as honorary grandparents. Mrs. Diaz from the apartment upstairs taught Lily to make tamales. Mr. Geller, a retired teacher who volunteered at Lily's school, attended her kindergarten graduation and cheered as loudly as any biological grandfather would have. Throughout these years, information about Melody came in unpredictable bursts. A former classmate spotted her working at a restaurant in Milwaukee. A police detective called to inform me she had been arrested for possession in Indiana, then released. A drug rehabilitation center in Missouri contacted me as her emergency contact, only to report she had left the program against medical advice after 2 weeks. Each time I followed up, but always arrived too late, finding only the vapor trail of my sister's chaotic life. After 5 years without sustained contact from Melody, my lawyer advised me to pursue formal adoption. The process required publishing notices in newspapers where Melody had last been known to reside, attempting to contact her through every available channel, and finally a court hearing where a judge determined that abandonment had been established. The adoption ceremony itself was small but meaningful. Tara stood beside us as witness along with Officer Jackson, who had kept in touch over the years, and several families from our parent support group. When the judge declared that Lily was legally my daughter, as if born to you, I felt the strange mixture of joy and sorrow that had become familiar happiness for our family's official recognition, tinged with sadness for my sister's absence. Lily, now understanding more about her situation, asked thoughtful questions about the adoption. "Does this mean my first mom isn't my mom anymore?" "No, sweetheart. Melody will always be your birth mother. The adoption means that I'm legally your mother too, and no one can take you away from our family." "Are we still waiting for her to come back?" The question pierced my heart. "We're not waiting anymore, but if she ever comes back healthy and ready to know you, she can be part of our family in a different way." Throughout these years, I maintained a secure file containing everything related to Melody and Lily's early days. The original note, the birth certificate, photographs, communication attempts, legal documents. I labeled it "For Lily When You're Older" and stored it in a fireproof lockbox, preparing for the day when she would want the complete, unvarnished truth. My own personal life remained largely on hold. Brief relationships ended when men couldn't understand that Lily would always be my priority, or when they expressed discomfort about the open questions surrounding her parentage. I told myself I didn't have time for dating anyway between working parenting and finally opening a small private practice specializing in trauma therapy. Then I met David at a school fundraiser when Lily was 8. A widowed father with a son in Lily's class, he understood the complexities of non-traditional families and the demands of single parenthood. Our relationship developed slowly, built on coffee conversations after school events and family park outings, before progressing to actual dates when our children had playdates together. By our 10th Christmas together, life had settled into a rhythm I would have never imagined on that fateful night when Melody appeared at my door. My practice was established enough to provide financial security. Lily was thriving in 4th grade, particularly in art and science. David and I were discussing marriage, blending our families officially after 2 years of dating. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe in long-term stability. The certified letter arrived the day after Christmas, the legal terminology cutting through our holiday peace like a knife. Notice of petition for grandparent visitation rights. Case number 35476. Respondent, Juliana Marie Johnson. Petitioners, Richard and Diana Johnson. After 10 years of silence, my parents were taking me to court. The manila envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Inside legal documents outlined my parents' claim they were seeking court-mandated visitation rights with their granddaughter, alleging that I had maliciously alienated them from Lily's life and prevented a meaningful relationship from forming. "This can't be happening," I whispered, scanning the documents again. "They rejected her. They rejected us. For 10 years. More shocking than my parents' sudden interest was the additional name listed as a supporting witness, Melody Johnson. According to the attached affidavit, my sister had resurfaced and was supporting our parents' petition, claiming she had always intended for them to have a relationship with Lily, despite my interference. "Juliana!" David's concerned voice broke through my stunned silence. "What is it?" I handed him the papers, watching his expression shift from confusion to outrage as he read. "This is absurd. They can't possibly have a case after abandoning you both for a decade." "Apparently they think they do." My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "And they've found Melody." The first pressing concern was shielding Lily from the worst of it while being honest about what was happening. That evening, after she was in bed, David and I discussed how to approach the conversation. "She needs to know something is happening with her birth mother and grandparents," I said, "but I don't want to frighten her or make her feel like she might be taken away." "We'll be straightforward but reassuring," David agreed. "And we need a lawyer immediately." My finances had improved over the years, but not enough to afford the kind of high-powered attorney my parents would certainly employ. David's cousin Andrea was a family law attorney in a neighboring county. Though not specialized in grandparent visitation cases, she agreed to represent me at a reduced rate after hearing our story. "This won't be easy," Andrea warned during our first meeting. "Grandparent visitation laws give courts significant discretion. Your parents are well connected and have resources, but the fact that they've had no relationship with Lily works strongly in your favor." "What about Melody's involvement? Does that complicate things?" "It does," Andrea admitted. "Her support of their petition suggests a coordinated effort. We need to understand what's motivating her participation." Over the following weeks, we prepared our case while trying to maintain normalcy for Lily. I gathered 10 years of documentation receipts showing I had been Lily's sole financial support records of the unanswered emails and returned mail I had sent to my parents, photographs documenting Lily's life milestones that they had chosen to miss. Andrea filed motions for discovery, forcing my parents to provide evidence for their claims. What returned was shocking polished narratives about attempts to contact me that had been rebuffed, birthday cards, allegedly sent but never received, and stories about Melody attempting to reunite the family only to be blocked by my vindictiveness. "This is complete fiction," I told Andrea, my hands shaking with anger. "They're lying about everything." "They're creating a paper trail after the fact," she agreed. "But judges aren't stupid. We can challenge the authenticity of these documents. The most difficult part was explaining the situation to Lily. At 10, she was old enough to understand conflict, but too young to grasp the legal complexities. David and I sat with her in our living room, keeping our voices calm, despite our internal turmoil. Remember how we've talked about your birth mom, Melody, and your biological grandparents? I began carefully. She nodded. The ones who live far away and don't visit. Well, they've contacted us through some special legal papers. They're saying they want to meet you and spend time with you now. Her eyes widened. My real mom wants to see me, and I have grandparents who want me too. The phrase real mom stung, but I maintained my composure. Melody is your biological mother, yes, and the grandparents are my parents. But there's something important you need to understand. They haven't been part of our lives all these years because they chose not to be, not because I kept them away. Then why do they want to see me now? That's what we're trying to understand, David interjected gently. Sometimes adults make complicated decisions that are hard to explain. Will I have to go live with them? Fear crept into her voice. No, absolutely not, I assured her, pulling her into a hug. You are my daughter legally, and in every way that matters. This is about whether they can visit you sometimes, not about where you live. Do I have to see them if I don't want to? Andrea had advised us on this specific question. Right now we're working with a lawyer to figure all that out, but I promise your feelings will be very important in any decisions. The first court date arrived with brutal swiftness. Entering the courthouse, I saw my parents for the first time in a decade. My father looked older but still imposing in an expensive suit, my mother immaculately preserved through whatever cosmetic procedures money could buy. They sat with their attorney, a distinguished-looking man whose reputation in family law preceded him. But the true shock was seeing Melody beside them, nearly unrecognizable from the desperate woman who had appeared at my door with Lily. Her hair was professionally styled, her clothing expensive and conservative. She sat straight-backed and sober, looking the image of reformation. When our eyes met across the courtroom, she quickly looked away, confirming my suspicion that her participation wasn't entirely voluntary. My parents had found her vulnerable point and exploited it as they had done throughout our childhood. The initial hearing established procedural matters, but even this preliminary exchange revealed the judge's leanings. Judge Harmon, a man in his 60s with a reputation for traditional family values, seemed impressed by my parents' standing in the community and receptive to their lawyer's framing of the case as a loving family divided by misunderstanding. The court recognizes the importance of grandparent relationships, he noted at one point, setting my teeth on edge. Outside the courtroom, Andrea didn't sugarcoat our situation. We need to prepare for the possibility that he may grant some visitation. Judge Harmon tends to favor extended family involvement. They don't care about Lily, I insisted. This is about control, not love. Then we need to prove that, she replied. And we need something compelling enough to overcome the presumption that grandparent relationships benefit children. As the case progressed, my parents escalated their campaign. They established a college fund for Lily, purchased a car to be given to her on her 16th birthday, and renovated a bedroom in their home specifically for her visits. Each gesture was documented and submitted to the court as evidence of their commitment to her future. They're trying to buy her, I told David one night, scrolling through photos of the lavishly decorated bedroom they had created for a child they had never met. Just like they tried to buy my compliance all my life. Money doesn't make a family, he reminded me. You've shown that for 10 years. The most disturbing development came when my parents requested a private meeting with me, ostensibly to discuss settlement. Against Andrea's advice, I agreed, hoping to understand their true motivation. The meeting took place in their lawyer's office, the plush surroundings emphasizing the power imbalance. My mother spoke first, her voice carrying the same judgment it always had. This could all be resolved if you would simply be reasonable, Juliana. We're not asking for custody, just regular visits with our granddaughter. After 10 years of pretending she doesn't exist, I countered. What changed? My father cleared his throat. We've had time to reconsider our position. Family legacy matters. Legacy, I repeated. Is that what this is about? Your inheritance needs an heir. A flash in my father's eyes confirmed my suspicion. Recent changes in our state's inheritance laws had created tax advantages for estates with direct descendants. Lily, as their only grandchild, had suddenly become valuable to them. We've established a trust for Lily. My father continued, ignoring my question. Quite substantial, but it's contingent on regular contact and influence in her upbringing. You're trying to buy access to her. The realization wasn't surprising, but the baldness of it shocked me nonetheless. What about Melody? How did you convince her to support your petition? My mother's smile turned cold. Your sister has finally accepted the help she needs. We've arranged for her treatment at an exclusive facility. Her continued recovery depends on her cooperation with family reunification efforts. The manipulation was so blatant it took my breath away. They were using Melody's addiction and vulnerability to force her participation, dangling recovery as a reward for compliance. I stood gathering my belongings. I'll see you in court, and I suggest you prepare yourselves for the truth to become very public. After this meeting, Andrea and I made a difficult decision. The gentle approach wasn't working. We needed to present the complete, unvarnished history of my parents' rejection and manipulation, even if it meant exposing painful details. I authorized her to prepare what we began calling the nuclear option, a comprehensive documentation of everything that had happened from the night Lily was abandoned on my doorstep to the present day. This will be difficult for everyone, Andrea warned, including Lily eventually. Are you prepared for that? I thought of the folder I had maintained all these years, waiting for the day Lily would be old enough to understand her history. That day had arrived sooner than expected, but with higher stakes than I had imagined. The truth was always going to come out someday, I said. I'd rather it protect her now than hurt her later. As the final hearing approached, we prepared the sealed folder of evidence containing everything from the original note Melody had left with Lily to the most recent evidence of my parents' manipulation. It represented not just 10 years of documentation, but a lifetime of conditional love and emotional abuse disguised as parenting. The night before court, I sat with Lily, trying to prepare her for what might happen without frightening her. Tomorrow is an important day, I explained. The judge will decide about your grandparents' request to visit you. Will I have to talk to the judge? She asked, worry creasing her forehead. Not tomorrow. If it becomes necessary later, we'll prepare you carefully for that. She was quiet for a moment, then asked the question I had been dreading. Is my real mom going to be there? I took her hands in mine. Melody will be there, yes. But I want you to understand something important. Being a mother isn't just about biology. It's about being there every day, for all the big and small moments. It's about putting someone else's needs before your own, always. Like you do for me, she said simply. Yes, sweetheart. Like I've tried to do every day since you came into my life. No matter what happens tomorrow, or what anyone says in court, nothing changes that. You're my daughter in all the ways that matter most. She hugged me tightly, and I held her, praying that the evidence in our folder would be enough to protect the family we had built together, imperfect, but bound by love rather than obligation or appearance. The courtroom felt impossibly small as all the significant figures of the past decade converged in one space. My parents sat at the plaintiff's table with their attorney, presenting a united front of affluent respectability. Melody sat behind them, her expression unreadable. David squeezed my hand reassuringly as we took our places beside Andrea. Judge Harmon called the court to order, his tone suggesting the weariness of someone who had seen too many family disputes deteriorate into bitter contests. This is the final hearing in the matter of Johnson versus Johnson petition for grandparent visitation rights. I'll hear closing arguments from both parties before making my determination. My parents' lawyer rose first, his custom suit and confident demeanor projecting authority. Your Honor, this case represents a tragedy of misunderstanding and obstinacy. My clients, Richard and Diana Johnson, are upstanding members of the community who have been systematically denied a relationship with their only grandchild for 10 years. They have established a college fund, prepared a room in their home, and stand ready to provide advantages that Ms. Johnson cannot offer alone. He gestured toward Melody. The child's biological mother supports their petition. She recognizes that her daughter would benefit from the stability, resources, and extended family connections that regular visitation would provide. The grandparents seek only what is commonly recognized as beneficial to children connection to their roots and heritage. Throughout his presentation, he displayed photographs of my parents' home, the bedroom they had prepared for Lily, and documentation of the financial provisions they had established. The performance was polished and compelling, painting them as generous providers, unfairly excluded from a child's life by a vindictive daughter. When it was Andrea's turn, she approached the bench with quiet determination. Your Honor, this case is indeed about family, but not in the way opposing counsel has framed it. This is about the nature of true parental love versus performative gestures designed to create an appearance of care without the substance. She laid out our position methodically. I had raised Lily alone after her abandonment with no support, financial, emotional, or practical, from my parents. They had explicitly rejected both of us when I approached them for help. Their sudden interest coincided suspiciously with changes in inheritance tax laws requiring direct descendants. Most troublingly, Andrea continued, the petitioners have coerced the biological mother's participation by making her addiction treatment contingent upon supporting their case, a manipulation that speaks to their true character and intentions. The judge frowned at this accusation. Those are serious allegations, Counselor. Do you have evidence to support them? We do, Your Honor. Andrea motioned for me to approach. My client has maintained comprehensive documentation of all interactions related to her daughter's welfare since the night of her abandonment. I rose, clutching the sealed folder containing 10 years of meticulous records. As I handed it to the judge, our eyes met briefly, and I saw a flicker of curiosity in his expression. Judge Harmon opened the folder and began reviewing its contents. The courtroom fell silent as he examined document after document, the original note from Melody authenticated by handwriting analysis. My email records showing years of unanswered messages to my parents with attached photos of Lily. Financial records demonstrating I had received no support while working multiple jobs to provide for her. Voice message transcripts in which my parents explicitly stated they wanted nothing to do with Melody's mistake. The judge's expression shifted as he continued through the evidence, returned mail marked "refused" in my father's handwriting. Social media posts from my mother during years she claimed to be heartbroken over separation from her granddaughter, showing international vacations with no mention of a missing family member. Recent texts between Melody and me revealing the pressure tactics used to secure her cooperation. Most damning was the private investigator's report I had commissioned after learning of Melody's supposed recovery, showing she was still actively using substances despite my parents' claims about her rehabilitation. After what seemed an eternity, Judge Harmon looked up, his expression grave. "Do they even know what you have in this folder?" he asked quietly. I nodded, maintaining eye contact. "They know what they did. Whether they expected me to document it is another matter." The judge turned to my parents' attorney. "Counselor, have you reviewed these materials?" The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "We were not provided with these specific documents during discovery, Your Honor, because they were compiled in response to evidence provided by the petitioners during these proceedings," Andrea interjected. "My client has the right to rebut false claims with factual evidence." "Indeed she does," the judge agreed, closing the folder. "I'll need time to review these materials thoroughly before making my determination. Court is in recess until 2 p.m. During the recess, my parents' lawyer approached Andrea with a settlement offer. They would drop the petition if I agreed to supervised visits 4 times a year. I declined without hesitation. "They need to hear the truth spoken aloud," I told Andrea. "All of it." When court reconvened, Judge Harmon appeared troubled but resolved. "Having reviewed the evidence presented by both parties, I'm prepared to rule on this matter. But first, I want to hear directly from Ms. Johnson." I approached the witness stand and was sworn in, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. "Ms. Johnson, please tell the court in your own words why you believe this petition should be denied." Taking a deep breath, I focused on the judge rather than my parents or Melody. Your honor family is not defined by DNA or legal documents alone. It's defined by showing up by being present for the hard moments, not just the convenient ones. For 10 years, I have been Lily's only consistent parent. I was there for her first words, her first steps, her nightmares, her triumphs. I worked multiple jobs while completing my education to provide for her. I built a support network of people who love her for who she is, not what she represents. I gestured toward my parents. The petitioners explicitly told me that Lily was my burden when I sought their help after my sister abandoned her newborn on my doorstep. They suggested I place her for adoption rather than ruin my life by raising her. They refused all contact until recently, returning mail unopened and ignoring email updates about their only grandchild. I continued steadily addressing their claims directly. They speak now of college funds and bedrooms decorated by interior designers, but these are just things. They have never asked about Lily's favorite color, her dreams, her fears, or her needs. Their sudden interest coincided with tax law changes making her valuable as an heir, not with genuine concern for her well-being. Turning to Melody, I softened my tone slightly. My sister made an impossible choice when she left Lily with me. I have never denied that Melody is Lily's biological mother, and I've kept the door open for her return when she could be healthy and present. But she has chosen to align herself with the same parents who enabled her addiction rather than supporting her recovery, and now they're using her vulnerability to further their case. Finally, I addressed the core issue. Your Honor forced visitation with people who rejected Lily at birth and have shown no genuine interest in her as a person would harm her, not help her. It would expose her to conditional love based on compliance rather than genuine care based on who she is. I'm asking the court to protect her from the emotional damage that would cause and allow her to continue thriving in the stable, loving environment I've worked so hard to create. After I stepped down, Judge Harmon called a brief sidebar with both attorneys. When they returned to their tables, he delivered his ruling. In the matter of Johnson versus Johnson, I find in favor of the respondent. The petition for mandated grandparent visitation is denied. He held up his hand as my parents' attorney began to object. My decision is based on the overwhelming evidence that the petitioners voluntarily abandoned their relationship with the child, for 10 years explicitly rejected opportunities for contact, and have demonstrated concerning motivations for seeking access now. He continued firmly. This court will not compel a child who has never met her grandparents to suddenly form a relationship with them under court order, particularly given the documented history of rejection and manipulation. The respondent has proven herself to be a fit and loving parent who has acted consistently in her daughter's best interests under extremely difficult circumstances. The judge added a final condition. If in the future the petitioners wish to establish contact, it must be with the approval of both the respondent and a family therapist to ensure the child's emotional welfare is protected. This court retains jurisdiction should circumstances change significantly. The gavel's sharp crack echoed through the courtroom, sealing his decision. My parents sat frozen in disbelief, their carefully constructed narrative shattered by the weight of documented truth. Melody avoided my gaze as she slipped out a side door, her usefulness to them apparently ended with their defeat. Andrea hugged me briefly. It's over. You won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like the formal end of any possibility that my family of origin might someday heal, might someday become the loving support system I had once hoped for. David took my hand as we left the courtroom, his quiet presence more comforting than words. My mother caught up with us in the parking lot, her composed facade cracking. You've always been so self-righteous, Juliana. This isn't about taxes or inheritance, it's about family legacy. Family is more than legacy, Mom. It's love in action every day. You chose appearance over substance every time it mattered. We gave you everything growing up, she countered bitterly. Everything except unconditional love. I met her gaze directly. That's what I've given Lily, and what I'll continue to give her with or without your approval. She turned away without response, returning to where my father waited in their luxury car, already on his phone making business calls as though the proceedings had been merely an inconvenient meeting rather than the severing of family bonds. Arriving home, I found Tara and Lily waiting anxiously. The relief on my daughter's face when I told her she wouldn't be forced to visit strangers was worth every difficult moment of the past months. "So I don't have to meet them?" she asked, seeking confirmation. "Not unless you want to someday when you're ready, and I'll be with you if you ever do." That evening, as our small family shared dinner with Tara and celebrated the return to normalcy, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't fully acknowledged was there. For 10 years, I had carried the fear that someday my parents or Melody would reappear and disrupt the life I had carefully built for Lily. Now that fear had materialized, been faced, and been overcome. 1 year later, our life had found a new rhythm. My practice continued to thrive, and David and I were engaged planning a small ceremony with our children as our only attendants. Lily had entered middle school, her artistic talents flourishing under the guidance of a dedicated art teacher who recognized her potential. A surprising letter arrived from Melody, postmarked from a legitimate rehabilitation facility in another state. Unlike her previous communications, this one showed signs of genuine recovery, acknowledgement of her actions, no excuses, and no demands. She asked for forgiveness, but expressed understanding that trust would take time to rebuild, if it was even possible. She requested permission to write to Lily directly when I felt it appropriate, accepting that supervised contact was the only option she had earned. After careful consideration and consultation with Lily's therapist, I wrote back establishing clear boundaries, but leaving the door open for eventual contact, if Melody maintained her sobriety and respected our terms. It was a cautious first step toward a different kind of family relationship, one based on earned trust rather than obligation. Our wedding day arrived on a perfect spring afternoon. As David and I exchanged vows in a friend's garden, Lily stood beside me, no longer the abandoned infant, but a confident preteen who understood she was cherished for exactly who she was. David's son Jake, now Lily's close friend and soon-to-be stepbrother, stood by his father with equal pride. Tara caught the bouquet, winking at Officer Jackson, who had remained in our lives and recently begun joining us for holiday gatherings. Mrs. Diaz wiped away tears, and Mr. Geller led the small crowd in enthusiastic applause as we were pronounced husband and wife. That night, after the children were asleep, David and I sat on our porch swing talking about the future. "Did you ever imagine that night when Melody showed up at your door, that this is where you'd end up?" he asked. I considered the question carefully. Never. I was terrified, certain my life was being destroyed. But looking back, that moment of crisis led to every good thing I have, now my daughter, my career helping others through trauma, even meeting you. "Sometimes the worst nights of our lives lead to the best days," he observed, squeezing my hand. I thought of the sealed folder now stored away, but preserved for when Lily might someday want to understand her full history. It contained pain and rejection, but also the documentation of love powerful enough to overcome abandonment, to create family from scratch, to fight for what truly matters. "The judge asked me that day if my parents knew what I had in that folder," I said quietly. "But the real question wasn't about the evidence. It was about what I had built despite their absence, a life of genuine love rather than appearances. That's what they never understood and still don't." As the stars appeared above us, I felt profound gratitude for the unexpected path my life had taken. From the desperate young woman confronted with an abandoned baby to the confident mother therapist, and now wife, I had become. Every step had taught me something about resilience, about choosing love over fear, about the family we create, rather than the one we're born into. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal, or create family from scratch when your blood relatives failed you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. How did you find strength when everything seemed impossible? Subscribe for more real-life journeys through hardship to healing, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes our greatest blessings arrive disguised as our worst nightmares. Thank you for walking this path with me today, And remember that true family is built day by day with love that shows up even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult.